I stood in the middle of the hotel lobby I had spent 6 years saving, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. The marble floors were cracked. The chandeliers hung crooked, dim like dying stars. Guests argued with staff about cancelled reservations, and a man threw his keycard at the front desk yelling, "This place is a scam!" My brother, Matteo, stood by the bar, laughing. The same brother I'd trusted with everything. The hotel that once smelled of jasmine and fresh coffee now reeked of cheap alcohol and cigarette smoke. I whispered, "You ruined it." He smirked. "Correction, Lysandra. I own it now." My heart stopped. Somewhere deep down I knew. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a setup. And I was about to uncover just how far my own blood had gone, to destroy me. I still remember the sound of it. The chaos echoing through the lobby like thunder in an empty canyon. Phones ringing non-stop. Guests shouting. A maid crying near the elevator. And me, standing in the middle of it all, feeling like the ground beneath my heels was crumbling. The Alvarez Grand Hotel. My father's dream, my blood, my life was falling apart. 6 years ago, when the pandemic almost buried us, I mortgaged my apartment, sold my car, and poured everything I had to keep it alive. We made it through, and for a while I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. "Lysandra!" The front desk clerk, Anna, ran toward me, tears in her eyes. "Half the bookings were cancelled this morning. The payment gateway is frozen." "What do you mean frozen?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She handed me a printout. "The account's restricted. The bank says the owner's authorization was changed last week." Owner's authorization. My heart thudded. Only 2 people had authority over that account. Me and my brother Matteo. I found him in the bar, leaning back with a drink in his hand, wearing one of his designer suits. The kind he couldn't afford without dipping into the business. "You look tense, sister," he said casually. "Everything okay?" "The account's frozen." "What did you do?" He chuckled, as if I'd just asked him about the weather. "Relax, Lise. I just restructured a few things. New investors, new strategy. You should thank me." "Investors? Without consulting me?" He smirked. "You've been busy traveling, playing the hero. Someone had to handle the real business." The words hit like a slap. I wanted to scream, but the stares from the staff held me still. Later that evening I walked through the corridors. The same ones I once polished myself when we couldn't afford cleaners. The air smelled of mold and cheap air freshener. A pipe leaked near the spa, the lights flickered, and guests whispered complaints. Everything I had built was rotting before my eyes. My desk, I opened my email. There it was, a message from the bank, flagged as urgent. "Dear Ms. Alvarez, this is a formal notice. The Alvarez Grand Hotel has defaulted on its primary loan due to unauthorized withdrawals. Unless resolved within 7 business days, your property will be subject to repossession." Defaulted. Unauthorized withdrawals. Repossession. My fingers shook so hard I could barely scroll. The withdrawals totaled $420,000. Every transfer authorized under my name. Only one person could have done that. The man I trusted most. I grabbed my phone and dialed the bank manager. "There's been a mistake," I said breathlessly. "I didn't approve any of those transfers." The voice on the other end was calm but cold. "Ms. Alvarez, all transactions were verified with your digital signature. I'm afraid this might be fraud." Fraud. My own hotel. My own brother. My own name. And then the final blow came. A text from Matteo. "Don't worry, sis. I've got this. Trust me one last time." I knew right then I was losing everything. The night I got that text I didn't sleep. I just sat in the office, surrounded by unpaid invoices and the faint hum of the old AC. The city lights blinked through the blinds like distant warnings. I kept rereading the message. "Trust me one last time." One last time. I'd trusted Matteo too many times before. 2 years earlier, he'd stood in this same office, eyes full of tears. "Lise, you can't carry this alone," he'd said. "Let me help you save Dad's dream." He promised he'd find investors, handle marketing, expand online. He was charming, confident, the kind of man who could sell sand in a desert. I believed him because he was my brother. For months, things actually looked better. We hosted weddings, corporate retreats, and even landed a celebrity couple once. Matteo strutted around like a star manager. I didn't care. As long as the hotel survived, he could take the credit. But success made him hungry. He began attending networking events that turned into weekends in Dubai and nights he couldn't remember. When I questioned him, he laughed it off. "Relax, Lise. You handle the boring stuff. I'll bring in the big deals." Now those big deals had drained nearly $500,000. I spent the next morning combing through transactions. Each transfer led to a shell company, Nova Vista Enterprises. I'd never heard of it, but its registration listed one director, Matteo Alvarez. My vision blurred. It wasn't just bad management. It was theft. At noon, I confronted him in the lobby. "Where's the money, Matteo?" He smiled like he was humoring a child. "Invested. You'll thank me when the returns hit." "What did you invest in?" "Future expansion," he said. "Besides, it's our money." "Our money," I hissed. "That was staff salary, maintenance, taxes. You've risked everything." He leaned close enough that I smelled whiskey on his breath. "Calm down, Lissandra. You wanted me involved. Now you get the full experience." Something in his tone chilled me. It wasn't arrogance anymore. It was ownership. That night I called our accountant, Mara, begging her to audit the books. She hesitated. "Lise, maybe just talk to Matteo first. He told me you were overwhelmed lately." "Overwhelmed?" I repeated. "Yes. He said stress makes you forget things, that you're signing forms twice." I didn't want to. I hung up before she could finish. My brother wasn't just stealing. He was preparing a story to make me look insane. As I left the office, Anna ran up again, holding an envelope. "This came for you. Urgent." Inside was a legal notice from a supplier suing the hotel for unpaid bills. But something else caught my eye. A signature at the bottom. My own. I never signed it. The pen stroke was identical but not mine. My chest tightened. Matteo wasn't only moving money. He was forging my name. I opened my phone and recorded a voice note. "If anything happens, this is my record. My brother Matteo Alvarez is falsifying documents under my authorization. I won't let him destroy what Dad built." I saved it, labeled it evidence under 01. Somewhere deep inside, a line had been crossed. The sister who trusted had just died. The woman who would fight back had just been born. By dawn I was in the accounting office. The place smelled of paper dust and stale coffee. My safe zone for years. But that morning it felt like a crime scene. Mara wasn't there. Her desk was half cleared, drawers empty. A single USB drive sat taped under her keyboard with my name written in blue marker. I plugged it into my laptop. A folder popped up labeled, "Do not delete." Inside were scanned ledgers. Dozens of them. Each one showed transfers marked as maintenance, supplier payments, or event deposits. But every path led back to Nova Vista Enterprises. I clicked one file named Final Days. My breath caught. Showed forged digital signatures, mine. Below each one there was an approval note. Authorized by Lissandra Alvarez, CEO. And the audit trail showed the same IP address used for all edits. Not mine. Otos. The betrayal was surgical, calculated, cold, and months in the making. I called Mara's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Then minutes later, an unknown number flashed on my screen. "Lissandra," a woman's voice whispered. "It's Mara. I can't talk long. Matteo found out I kept copies. He's furious. He said if I speak, he'll ruin me." "Mara, where are you?" "Somewhere safe," she said. "But you need to act fast. He's framing you. He told investors you've been forging numbers to hide debts. He's even got fake therapist notes claiming you're unstable." Froze. "You're joking." "I wish I was. Check the HR file. It's all there." She hung up. I ran to the HR office. Matteo's lover, Carla, the accountant he'd hired months ago, sat behind the desk pretending to work. When she saw me, her lips curled. "Looking for something, boss? Where are the HR records?" "Confidential," she said sweetly. "You're suspended from financial access, remember?" That was new. Suspended by who? "By the board," she replied, tapping a document. "Effective immediately. Matteo's acting director." The paper was stamped and signed by 3 members. His friends, not mine. I felt the blood drain from my face. Carla leaned in. "He told us you'd react like this." I grabbed the document and stormed out, my shoes echoing down the corridor. Staff stared, whispering. My family name had become gossip. In the stairwell, I stopped and caught my reflection in the window. My eyes were red, my hair undone, but behind the exhaustion was fury. If Matteo wanted war, he'd have it. I spent that night scanning every file, downloading every record from the hotel server to a private cloud. Each keystroke felt like reclaiming a piece of my father's legacy. Then my phone buzzed again. Mara had sent one last message. "He's planning to sell the hotel land. There's something buried in the deeds. Find it before he does." I didn't know what she meant yet, but it sounded like my only lifeline. The next morning, the press was waiting outside the hotel. Headlines already screamed. "Alvarez Hotel faces fraud probe. CEO under investigation." Matteo stood on the front steps, playing the hero. Cameras flashed as he said, "We're cooperating fully. My sister's under stress, but we'll fix this." Every word twisted like a knife. I walked straight past the reporters, up the stairs, and into the boardroom. "You want to talk about stress?" I said, slamming the forged contracts on the table. "Let's talk about theft." The board members, 3 men Matteo had charmed with golf trips and free suites, shifted uncomfortably. Matteo smiled, that polished grin that fooled everyone but me. "Lise, you're not helping yourself. These outbursts confirm what the psychiatrist said." "What psychiatrist?" "Our family doctor. He evaluated you last month." I laughed bitterly. "Last month I was in Lisbon signing deals, Matteo." He shrugged. "Then who signed the report?" He slid a file toward me. Inside was a medical certificate declaring me unfit for executive responsibility due to emotional instability. Damn. I turned to the board. "You all believe this?" They avoided my eyes. The oldest member muttered, "Until proven otherwise, he's acting director." I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. As I left, reporters swarmed again. Cameras caught the moment I pushed through tears. Silence thick around me. That footage would run for days. Disgraced CEO storms out. But humiliation has a strange way of cleansing the soul. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by evidence, laptop humming, heart hardened. If Matteo wanted to erase me, I'd become the ghost he couldn't bury. I replayed Mara's warning about the land deed. After hours of searching archives, I found it. A scanned document from 1989, my father's original purchase agreement. Attached was a clause I'd never seen before. In the event of mismanagement, ownership reverts to the original heir listed in the family trust. The heir was me. My pulse raced. Matteo had no idea this clause existed, because he never read the legal fine print, only the profit sheets. I picked up my phone and called my father's old lawyer, Mr. Ruiz. His sleepy voice answered. "Lissandra? It's been years. I need to invoke the reversion clause," I said. "Tonight." Silence. Then, "Are you sure, child? That will transfer every asset, every debt back to you." "I'm sure," I said. "Let him drown in the debts he created. I'll rebuild from the ashes." Ruiz sighed. "Then I'll draft the notice." As I hung up, I looked out the window at the dark city skyline. Somewhere below, Matteo was celebrating his victory with champagne. He thought I was finished. He had no idea the woman he'd broken had just found the weapon that would end him. The next morning felt eerily calm. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. I arrived at the hotel early. Before staff, before reporters, before Matteo. I wanted one last walk through the place I built before reclaiming it completely. The marble floors of the lobby glistened faintly in the dawn light, but I knew what lay beneath. The buried debts, the forged papers, the rot behind the gold. In my father's old office, dust motes floated in the sunlight like tiny ghosts. On his desk still sat the engraved nameplate. Emilio Alvarez, Vision Beyond Walls. "Papa," I whispered, "I hope you're watching. Because today I'm taking it back." At 9 a.m., I met with Mr. Ruiz in the conference room. His briefcase looked older than me, but his mind was sharp as ever. He adjusted his glasses and said, "Your father's trust included a reversion clause that activates automatically once mismanagement is legally established. And how long until that happens?" He smiled faintly. "It already has. With these forged documents, we have proof." He handed me a thick envelope sealed in red wax. "Once this is filed with the city registrar, ownership reverts to you. Matteo won't even see it coming." I exhaled for the first time in weeks. "Thank you, Mr. Ruiz." But relief was short-lived. As I left the office, I overheard two maintenance workers talking near the elevator. "They say Mr. Matteo's selling the entire hotel," one whispered. "He's showing buyers around tonight." My stomach twisted. He was trying to sell it before the transfer went through. If he succeeded, he could walk away rich, and I'd be left with nothing. I ran back to Ruiz. "We need to file the papers now." He nodded. "We can't do it electronically. Must be in person. The registrar closes at 5. I grabbed my car keys, but he caught my arm. "Lissandra, be careful. He's desperate now. Desperate men do dangerous things." He nodded. "Then it's a good thing I'm not afraid anymore." At 3:45 we reached the registrar's office. The clerk examined the documents, stamped them and smiled. "Congratulations, Ms. Alvarez. It's yours again." The sound of that stamp was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. That night I returned to the hotel. Matteo was in the ballroom with a group of men. Potential buyers. Champagne glasses glittered in their hands. I stepped into the light. "Gentlemen," I said calmly, "I'm afraid this meeting is over." Matteo's grin faded. "Lissandra, what are you doing here?" "Just stopping an illegal sale. The property no longer belongs to you." He laughed, but it was hollow. "You're bluffing." I handed him the certified deed. "Effective today, control reverts to the original heir me." His glass shattered against the floor. The buyers exchanged nervous looks and quietly left. He glared at me, rage twisting his face. "You think you've won?" I stepped closer. "No. I think I've just started. When you're stripped of everything, you learn who truly stands beside you." After regaining ownership, I expected loyalty. Instead, I found fear. Most employees avoided me, terrified of crossing Matteo. Rumors said he was planning to retaliate, to make the crazy sister regret humiliating him. But two people didn't run. The first was Chef Rodrigo, a stubborn man who'd been with us since I was a teenager. He found me in the kitchen late one night, eating cold soup from a takeout box. "You shouldn't be here alone," he said, wiping his hands. "I'm not alone," I said softly. "Not anymore." He nodded. "Then you'll need help. I've got security footage from the nights Matteo used the hotel for those illegal parties. I kept copies. He never knew." The second ally was Isabel, the front desk manager. She whispered. "I overheard him bragging to investors that he laundered money through event bookings. If the press gets that footage, he's finished." I looked between them, heart pounding. "Then let's make it public." For 2 days we compiled everything. Bank statements, invoices, security footage, and recordings of Matteo's calls. Isabel edited them into a single file labeled, "Truth About Matteo MP4. The plan was simple. Leak it anonymously to the media, the investors, and the tourism board. Once the video spread, his reputation would collapse. But the night before we launched it, everything fell apart. There was a knock at my apartment door around midnight. When I opened it, 4 men in suits pushed their way in, followed by Matteo. Calm, confident, dangerous. "Lysandra," he said smoothly. "You've been busy." I glared at him. "Get out." He smiled. "I would, but there's just one thing. The authorities want a word with you." 2 of the men flashed badges. "Ms. Alvarez, you're under investigation for financial fraud. Please come with us." Rodrigo stepped between us, shouting, "You can't arrest her. She's the victim." One of the officers grabbed his arm. "Interfere, and you'll join her." Matteo leaned in close, whispering, "You wanted a fight. Now let's see how you handle prison." As they led me away, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror, eyes hollow but defiant. I wasn't afraid. I was furious. Because deep down I knew one thing. He had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Jail isn't loud like movies show. It's quiet, too quiet. Just fluorescent lights, murmured voices, and the ticking of time that refuses to move. They took my phone, my bag, my dignity. I sat on the cold bench, hugging my knees, replaying every warning I'd ignored. "He's framing you. He'll ruin you." When my lawyer, Mr. Ruiz, finally arrived, I almost cried. He placed a brown envelope in my hands. "Lysandra, listen carefully. Matteo's team filed false reports linking you to every fraudulent transaction. The media's already calling you a criminal." Clenched my jaw. Then we hit back harder. He smiled faintly. "That's the spirit." He opened the envelope and pulled out a single document, the notarized copy of the reversion clause. "This," he said, "changes everything." I frowned. "How?" "Because legally, once you regained ownership, all prior debts and liabilities under Matteo's management are solely his. He can't frame you anymore without incriminating himself." A spark of hope flickered in my chest. "Then let's prove it." We spent hours reviewing statements, cross-referencing transfers, and compiling timestamps showing I was out of the country during half the fraudulent transactions. By morning, Ruiz looked up and said, "We file this today. Once the judge sees it, Matteo's empire collapses." When the guards came to release me on bail, a wave of reporters swarmed outside. Flashes blinded me, but I didn't hide this time. I raised my chin, said nothing, and walked straight through. Rodrigo and Isabel waited by the car. Isabel handed me her phone. "We still have the video," she whispered. "The world deserves to see what he's done." He nodded. "But not yet. First, we'll let the court see it." That afternoon we filed the documents. Matteo arrived at the courthouse with his expensive lawyer, smirking like he owned the world. When he saw me walk in, calm, collected, unbroken, his grin faltered. "Miss Alvarez," the judge said, scanning the papers. "You're presenting evidence of forgery, misappropriation, and defamation." "Yes, Your Honor," I said, sliding the USB drive across the table. "And video proof of every crime." As the screen flickered to life, footage filled the courtroom. Matteo pocketing cash, hosting illegal events, signing false contracts. Gasps echoed. His own lawyer dropped his pen. The judge's voice was firm. "Mr. Alvarez, unless you can refute this, we'll proceed with asset reversion." Matteo's confidence melted. "You can't do this. It's my hotel." "No," I said quietly. "It's my father's legacy. You were just a guest." The courtroom was packed. Reporters, investors, even a few former employees who'd once whispered that I was losing my mind. They were here to see if I'd crumble or rise. The judge called us to order. Case of Alvarez versus Alvarez. Property and fraud dispute. Matteo sat across the aisle, looking sharp in a charcoal suit, but the sweat glistening on his temple told the truth. I had nothing left to lose. He had everything. Mr. Ruiz stood and began. "Your Honor, my client, Lysandra Alvarez, presents irrefutable evidence of embezzlement, forgery, and fraud committed by her brother, Mr. Matteo Alvarez." He inserted the USB. The screen lit up with time-stamped videos. Mateo receiving envelopes of cash from unregistered event planners, falsifying employee signatures, laughing as he toasted champagne with investors he'd conned. The whispers around the courtroom grew into a storm. Mateo slammed his hand on the table. "This is edited. Lies." Ruiz smiled thinly. "Then explain the bank IP address that matches your personal residence." Mateo's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. I watched his face crumble with every frame. The man who once strutted through our hotel like a king now looked like a frightened child caught in the act. Then came the final blow, the land deed. Ruiz held it up like a sword. As per the original trust clause from Emilio Alvarez, ownership reverts to the heir upon confirmed mismanagement. That heir is Lysandra Alvarez. The judge reviewed the file. All assets revert to Ms. Alvarez effective immediately. The gavel hit. I felt tears burn behind my eyes. Not of sadness but release. Mateo's head dropped. "You planned this," he whispered. I met his gaze. "No, Mateo. You did. You just forgot who you were stealing from." Outside, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashing like fireworks. I said only one thing. Justice isn't revenge. It's balance restored. But in my heart I wasn't done yet. Because I wanted Mateo to feel what ruin really meant. The next morning I invited Mateo to the hotel. He looked broken, the confident smile gone, replaced by hollow eyes. "Why am I here?" he asked. "Because I'm giving you what you wanted," I said. "Ownership." He blinked confused. I handed him a temporary transfer form. "For 24 hours the hotel's yours again. All profits, all debts. No tricks." His eyes narrowed. "What are you playing at?" "Nothing," I replied softly. "Just teaching you the difference between control and consequence." He signed immediately. Greed always was his blind spot. Within hours the news broke. Investors pulling out, lawsuits surfacing, suppliers demanding unpaid balances. Every debt he'd buried came crawling out of the shadows. The hotel's accounts flooded with red warnings. He called me frantically that night. "Lysandra, you need to fix this." "The lawsuits." Cut him off. "They're your lawsuits now. Remember. The hotel's yours. You can't do this to me." "Oh, but I didn't." "You did it to yourself." By midnight, his lawyer sent a desperate email offering to sign everything back, forfeiting all future claims. I met him in the lobby the next morning, the same lobby where this all began. He looked smaller somehow, his pride finally gone. He handed me the signed papers with shaking hands. "Take it. Just take it all." I took them calmly. "I already did." He collapsed onto the marble steps, whispering, "I just wanted to be like Dad." Pause. "Then you should have learned what made him great, honesty." 6 months later, sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of the newly renamed Phoenix Grand Hotel. The chandeliers sparkled again. Guests laughed in the lobby. Fresh jasmine scented the air. My father's favorite. Every wall, every chair, every smile carried a memory rebuilt from ashes. Rodrigo ran the kitchen, Isabel handled operations, and I, finally, walked through the lobby not as a broken heir, but as a survivor who rebuilt everything from truth. We hosted our first charity gala that night. I stood by the grand staircase, wearing my father's cuff bracelet, whispering to the portrait on the wall. "We did it, Papa." A reporter approached me. "Ms. Alvarez, if you could tell your audience one thing after all this, what would it be?" Smiled. "That blood may build a legacy, but only integrity keeps it standing." Later, alone in my office, I opened the reservation log. One entry sat empty, always booked for the same date each year, under the name Mateo Alvarez. I didn't know if he'd ever return.